Welcome, everyone, to the Dad Cartel podcast. I'm excited to bring you conversations with great dads from across the country. Please follow the Dad Cartel on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok if you found value in this episode, and please share it with other dads to help create a great dad culture. If you're interested in participating as a guest, please email me at prouddad@dadcartel.com. Today, I'm joined by my good friend Cordero, a dad of two kiddos. Hey, Cord.
Hey, Nestor, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. Good. Uh, you know, when I started this, I was thinking of all the dads I knew, and I remembered, one thing I was thinking through was when we were training in Colorado together, and I'm like, how is this guy balancing being like an executive, having dad, like being a dad, being a husband, and like still training? And I'm like, I need to get this guy on the podcast.
Thanks, man. It's not easy, Nestor. Let me tell you that, brother. Um, jujitsu has been so much fun and I love everything about it. But when we
Hmm.
had kids, man, my life totally changed. I went from training like 5 days a week and then having a little one, and then it was 2 days a week, and now we have two of them. And I travel, to your point, man, for my job. I'm on the road like every other week, so it's
Yeah,
tough to balance everything. But when I had my boys, man, it put everything into perspective. And as much as I love jujitsu and travel and everything like that, they always come first. So, but it's
yeah.
not easy, and I know yours is coming soon. So,
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about your dad origin story. Like how did that happen for you? What was it like for you being a first time dad?
yeah, man. I didn't know what to expect, right? And there's kind of like the cliche where it's like, oh, you're never really ready, and I didn't know what to expect. I remember my wife and I were talking, and she was like, I think I want to have kids. And I was like a total, no way, I'm not ready. I was 27 at the time. And I was just
Hmm.
like, I can't do this yet. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I wanted to wait till I was like 40. And so we agreed to do it. And that's kind of how it all started. And then we had our first son, Bo, and like I said, man, I don't think anybody's actually ever ready to become a dad or to become a mom. There's not like a perfect time, Nestor. It's not like, oh, when I'm 40 or when I'm 22, or it doesn't
Yeah,
really matter. Like you're never actually prepared for it. But when you have a child, man, your fatherly instincts just kind of kick in. You just kind of like know what to do. You become that protector. You want to be that provider for them.
yeah,
And so, that's kind of how it started. It wasn't really a anything, like it wasn't unplanned, but it wasn't
yeah.
like we were ready.
Yeah, that's always an interesting point, right? Like when is a good time? And the overwhelming feedback I get is like there's never a good time, right? Like everyone, I think every guy I've talked to is like, yeah, the ideal scenario is like I have $1 million in the bank and like the house is paid off and like all this stuff, right? But
Yeah.
that's not a very likely scenario for most people. And I think even if you like anyone had that, it's still like, I don't know if I feel ready either way. So it's like you kind of have to jump into the pool if you feel like that's the kind of life that you want.
Yeah, to your point, man, I would have loved it if we had millions of dollars in the bank. But back then I was really selfish too. And then I'm like, I don't know if I want to spend all this money on these kids.
Yeah.
I want to go travel and do all this other stuff. But yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
there's nothing that's gonna, whether you have $1 million or you may have $1,000 in the bank. There's nothing that's going to really prepare you. Don't get me wrong. I think that we made a decision to make sure we had our careers where we wanted them.
Hmm.
We were making decent money. We had a house and everything like that, and I think that helps because we wanted to make sure we were financially stable before we had a kid. And I
Yeah.
think that is important. So don't get me wrong. I think
Hmm.
that you want to give that child the best opportunity and chance to be successful, and I think that's a key part of it. But
Hmm.
I don't think that having $1 million makes it any easier.
Yeah, no, for sure. Uh, tell me what your expectations were when you found out you were going to be a dad, and I'm sure everyone kind of goes through it. I have them in my head now. But what were your expectations compared to like what was reality?
Yeah, first and foremost, when we had kids, I thought my life was kind of going to be similar, right? Like I would be able to go to jujitsu a few days a week,
Mm.
and I could just kind of travel the way I wanted to, and it would kind of just our son would just go with us everywhere. I didn't think that it would be a big problem. Um, that changed pretty quick. You realize, oh my gosh, we have a baby. You're not, your poor wife's probably not sleeping at all. You're waking up in the middle of the night to help, obviously, do feedings and things like that. And so my expectation when we, or I should say what I thought was going to happen when we had Bo was it was just going to kind of be status quo, same thing, no
Mm,
different. But you soon realize like, okay, like everything is upside down. Not to mention you're sleep deprived. So like you
yeah.
don't, you're like tired and you have to go to work and so you really don't leave the house. And Nestor, it's funny because when you have yours, you're gonna like get in the car and you're used to just kind of like getting in the car and driving and not thinking about it. Now you have like you're responsible for this life and you suddenly realize how crazy people drive and you're like you're getting road rage because you're like, dude, what are you doing? You're cutting me off, like I
Yeah.
got a baby in the car.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of so much changes. The status quo is not going to continue.
Yeah. It's funny. I was talking to my wife about this, where I think early on into the pregnancy, she asked me, "Do you feel like more like defensive or more of like a protector now that I'm pregnant?" And I'm like, "Well, I feel like I've always kind of been that way." And I think yesterday we were at Costco and it kind of hit me that it has like amplified because now that she has, this big belly and she's about to, give birth in a couple days here, that, anytime anyone gets even remotely close to her, and especially like Costco, people are just so inconsiderate and like almost kill you and like run you over with the big carts, that I'm just like, oh my God, like I need to get out of here because I want to strangle this guy and or whoever it is, right? And so like, yeah, that's definitely like the protector being amplified for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, and that's like fatherly instinct, man.
Yeah.
And you got a baby on the way, and you're just the protector, and
Yeah.
that's not going to change, by the way. So just prepare
Hmm.
yourself for more of it. Wait till your kids get into to like elementary school. Like mine's in kindergarten
Yeah.
now, and I have another one in preschool, and I'm just like, I worry all the time, man.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that's an interesting point. You're a dad that has kids. I think your kids do jujitsu, right? You have them training. What is
Yeah,
that?
my oldest.
What does that look like for you? Like, how did you get them introduced into it? How did you approach that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so obviously, you want your kids to like what you like. So,
Hmm.
I like I said earlier, I love everything about jujitsu, and so my son has been coming. My oldest had been coming to the mat since he was like, oh man, I don't even know. He was probably a month old the first time I got him on the mat, and I was still a blue belt at the time when that happened. And he, I was just like, I can't wait for him to get into this. But part of it, honestly, Nestor, was, the society that we live in, bullying is so rampant. And my oldest is like a sweet little kid. My youngest is crazy. There was a comedian that said, I have two kids. One of them is going to grow up and be a lawyer. The other one's going to need a lawyer. And that is exactly my kids. My
That's
oldest is
awesome.
sweet, and I wanted him to train because I didn't want anybody to pick on him. And my youngest is like
Hmm.
ready to throw down at any time, and I'm not worried about
Yeah.
him. But
Yeah.
getting him into jujitsu was just like I wanted him to, be able to protect himself if anything happened. I wanted him to be able to control situations, to be able to walk away, to know that there's a
Yeah.
lot of tough guys out there that aren't tough. Like, you don't have to fight. You could step out of it. But
Hmm.
if something does go down, take him to the ground and choke him.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
that's how they got into it. But it all just kind of started with I didn't want them ever to feel like they were in a situation that they couldn't control, especially if it was an aggressive situation or somebody was coming at them or anything like that.
Yeah.
Now they're little, Nestor, so that's
Yeah.
not really a problem yet. But
Right.
man, training from since he's been 4, by the time he's 16, who knows, man? He'll far past me.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's scary to see how good those kids are when I get there early and see the kids' classes. But it's crazy to see like the effects it has on them, not just from the physical standpoint, but just the confidence that it gives them to do all these different things where they now can whatever it is, like go try to be the lead in a play or
Yeah,
go whatever it may be, go out for a soccer team or whatever else it is. Try to be like the captain of the chess club or something like that, right? It's just the effects that it has throughout their life is so impressive.
it's so true. So you actually just said something great. So we play a ton of sports. Um, my little one right now, my youngest Ezra, he's playing soccer, and my oldest Bowen, he's playing hot floor hockey right now.
Hmm.
And the confidence that I think even just putting him in jujitsu that young has helped him just even on the floor. He's not afraid to get
Yeah.
in there and mix it around.
Hmm.
And then you said chess club. This is funny. He's in
Yeah.
kindergarten and he brought home he wants to do chess club now, which is great because I am like
It's
that is
awesome.
so not me. And I love that
Yeah.
he's so different and wants to do it. And I think that,
Yeah.
that probably helped his confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like the knowing that you can play chess and not get bullied for it, it's like that's a nice that's a nice thing to have in your back pocket.
Yeah, I agree.
That's awesome. So in terms of being a dad, what there's a lot of talk about, right? We touched a little bit on, being the financial contributor, being the main provider usually, but what are some thoughts on a really important non-financial contribution that a dad can make?
Yeah, this is a great question, Nestor. And honestly, the most important thing to me with my kids is growing up and knowing Jesus. I mean, honestly, man, I don't know how that's going to go at in today's
Yeah,
society, but man, that's a big deal to me. Um,
100%.
when we had kids, there's so many good qualities, right? That are not that you
Hmm.
can do that's
Hmm.
non-financial, right? Spend time with your kids, be present,
Hmm.
providing them love and support, being a
Hmm.
good role model. There's all these type of different things you can do, but most importantly to me, I
Hmm.
think a lot of that starts with a good moral foundation and
Hmm.
Bible verse that I kind of like when we had our first that I really wanted was like I kept coming back to this Proverbs, right? It was Proverbs 22:6, which basically says, train up train up your child or train up a child in a way that he should go. And even when he's older, he will not depart from it. And
Hmm.
so that kept coming back to me. And so, what I think that really means is, it's emphasizing that you need to raise your children with proper guidance and instruction. And
Hmm.
train up just implies, being deliberate and intentional in teaching your children, morals and values, and good characteristics, and those traits will serve them throughout their life. Now, as they get older, right, we all hear those stories. People go to college, and you know how colleges are today. There's a lot going on, and they may
Hmm.
depart from that, but at least you've given them, a foundation to make good choices as an adult. And I think a lot of that starts with letting them know Jesus and the Bible early. When we go to church every Sunday, it's important to
Yeah.
me that they have strong faith and values. And I think that
Mhm.
that helps.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's something that personally it's something I've come more and more I've made more and more important in my life. It's something that growing up I was raised Catholic, really kind of walked away from religion in general for a long time until I met my wife, and her family is very Catholic, her other side's very much Christian, but those morals and that discipline and that the ethos of trying to be a better person overall just resonated with me so much that it really did pull me back in. And I couldn't agree with you more, right? Like with everything that you just said, that it's really important to impart these morals and these values in kids. And I think that's most successfully or best done, I think, through religion, through Jesus, like you said. So no, I
Yeah.
completely agree with you on that.
Thanks, Nestor. Yeah, man. I mean, another one, and I'm not going to go too into these too many, but like I said, when I was having kids, I was kind of just going through the Bible, and I was like trying to figure out what, like help because I don't know what's happening and what does this mean and how am I going to raise my kids? And there was another verse in Ephesians that I still remember today, and I'm going to probably mess this up, but it goes
Mhm.
something like, fathers, don't provoke your children to anger, but bring
Mhm.
them up with discipline and instruction of the Lord. And so it's great because God is specifically talking to fathers at that point, making
Yeah.
sure your kids are, well grounded and they're not
Mhm.
angered all the
Mhm.
time and they're level headed. And so
Mhm.
um, I love that you come back to that, man. I think it's great. I think
Mhm.
that people need that today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think the more and whatever that may be, right? It's whether it's religion. I think if even if you don't personally believe in religion in whatever form it is, whether Christianity, Catholicism, taking the framework that they have of overall just trying to be a good person and trying to make better people and trying to contribute positively to your society and community. I think that's the overall kind of lesson to take from that, if nothing else. But
Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. But what are your thoughts on balance in terms of balancing responsibilities. I know it's a big thing. One funny thing that I hear is that you get both sides of the coin where some people swear by girls are the best because they're so well behaved. And then some say, my boys are I'll deal with the chaos of young boys to have, well behaved, toddlers and teens later. What are your thoughts on balancing responsibilities with your wife on taking care of your kids?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like I don't know, right? I have two little boys, so but we have lots of friends that have little girls, and I always hear, oh, girls are easier when they're younger, but as they get older, like watch out because those teenage years are
Hmm.
coming, and boys get easier. Um,
Hmm.
I don't really know, man. Both my kids are wild. Like I said, they're so much fun. They're all over the place. But in terms of like balancing responsibilities, it's tough, right? That's been hard too because my wife works. She has a fantastic job, and she's a lot smarter than I am. She does. I don't even really understand what she does. I ask her all the time, and I still don't get it. And so her career is important to her, just as mine is. But then we also have our two children, and so balancing can be tough. I would definitely say that she does the majority of pickups and things like that because I am on the
Yeah.
road. But when I'm home, I try to make it a
Hmm.
point to help out as much as I can because
Yeah.
it is a balance, right? We had kids together.
Hmm.
It's not just all on her. And I need to be there for those guys. So, in terms of like balancing and how we kind of structure that day, we have two, the two boys are in separate schools at the moment. So both of us will, take turns on either dropping them off or each of us are picking them up. And then making sure that they're active. I don't miss their sporting events. I will not miss their sporting events. In fact, I actually coach a lot of their teams.
That's awesome.
And Bree's kind of prepping up snacks and things like that to give out to the team, and I'm trying to help coach. And
Yeah.
so it's really a team effort. And so for any new dads that
Hmm.
are, jumping in, you got to make sure you're helping your wife, girlfriend, whatever, because man, it's so treacherous on them, especially in those first few months. They're tired. There's a
Hmm.
lot going on. Get up, help with
Hmm.
those help with those feedings, get bottles, change diapers. Like, just don't be afraid to jump in because I'm telling you, man, that's going to go a long way in your relationship, especially with your significant other.
Yeah, one of the things that I hear is, and I'm seeing more and more in content out there is, sometimes the women, they're almost like there's a couple schools of thought of one, they feel like I'm overburdened or overstimulated right now, and I don't want to ask for help because I just don't even know what I need. So
Yeah,
part of it is like I feel like men being attentive to what are the needs of your partner, right? And trying to pick those up as you see them. The other part is just being point blank asking, what is it that I can help you with and trying to make that effort. But it feels like it's a two-pronged approach where it's like try to anticipate needs and obviously no one is perfect, but there's also the other side of the coin of it's okay to ask and you should ask because you never know what kind of response you might get.
yeah. I don't know anything about this, so I don't really want to go there. But I know postpartum is a big deal, man. Like the depression
Yeah.
happens. Like I said, man, having a kid is so
Hmm.
life changing. Everything about your
Hmm.
life is going to change for the better, right?
Right.
Because event, now you have somebody that you're not just living for yourself anymore. You can't be so selfish, and so,
Hmm.
but moms in particular, yeah. And sometimes they're not going to ask, so you just got to kind of step up and help however you can. Take the initiative to do whatever it is that you think she may need help with. And like I said, that will go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, who were some of your dad role models growing up, and what did you take away from those role models, both good and bad?
Yeah, that's a great question. My parents split when I was really little. So I don't really, my father and I, my biological father and I, we don't have a close relationship or anything. I have two half brothers on that side of the family, and they were young. I don't hold any grudge or anything. My parents were
Hmm.
extremely young. You hear like, oh, you're an accident. I mean, I probably was that guy. I
Hmm.
wasn't supposed to be here, but at the end
Yeah.
of the day, my role model really came from two guys. My grandfather, Ray Rotondo. He was kind of the epiphany of a good guy. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. He was a railroader. He was an engineer for on the railroad, and so he was gone a lot too. Right, traveled a lot. But Um,
Mhm.
he would take me with my let's change an oil, within a small town, working on cars. He would build everything. And he just kind of taught me how to take care of a lady. He was very good to my grandmother, buying flowers and just making sure she's taken
Awesome.
care of. And so that was kind of my role model. My mom also remarried when
Mhm.
I was in third grade. And so my stepdad, they're since divorced, but he was a good guy too. So we had moved out of my little town, and my mom had met this guy, and he's been great. We're still really close to this day, even though they're not together. But man, I just remember playing football with him when I was little, and he got me into sports, and taught me kind of how to treat a lady, and what a man
Mhm.
is supposed to do, how you're supposed to provide, how you're
Yeah.
supposed to take care of your family. And so I would say that it's kind of like my ex stepdad, and then my grandfather. Those were the two guys in my life that I try to emulate.
It's awesome. Yeah, I feel like that's part of what I'm hearing as I put out this content is really that a lot of people have different situations, right? Like my upbringing was my dad was in my life, but he was in and out of jail. And really he was, you can say I was more so raised by my mother, and I had to look external for dad sources, right? For dad role models. And that looked a lot different for me too, where it was like who's a good uncle that I can model
Yeah,
behavior after? Who are some people on TV that I can like learn from, right? And I feel like the whether you have someone in your life directly or someone indirectly, there's always some kind of resource that you can find. Like pick a person who you think is a great guy, right? And try to learn from them. Or pick the person that's in your life that isn't in your life, that's, whatever it is, right? They left, they're bad to their spouse, whatever, and say, I'm gonna do the opposite. So there's a million ways to learn from good and bad, I feel like, but everyone's scenario is so different. And it's good to hear that you had someone that you could, whether it was your stepdad or your grandfather, like someone in your life, there's usually at least one person that you can model behavior after.
yeah, it's so true. And I do want to give a shout out to my mother too. I
Yeah.
mean, to your point, my mom, for I didn't have, like I said, I mean, I was basically, my mom had boyfriends in and out of her life, and they were terrible human
Hmm.
beings. And I
Hmm.
remember that when I was a kid, right? But
Yeah.
like small town trying to escape that life, and she gave a better
Yeah.
life to my sister and I when
Yeah.
we moved up to, and got out of that town. But
Hmm.
she could only do so much, right? I mean, I wanted to do these. I wanted to play football. I loved wrestling back in the day. I mean, you remember, like, I was watching the WCW, man. I
Yeah.
loved Sting and Hulk
Yeah.
Hogan, and I'd watch, WWF and watch Stone Cold. And, like, this was just boy stuff. And,
Yeah.
she pretended to be into it. She probably hated every second of it. And so when, I would go talk to my grandfather, or when she met my stepdad, I
Hmm.
thought that was cool because I got to hang out and talk to somebody about it. But
Hmm.
she had to play that role, mom and dad, for a long time for my sister and I am grateful
Yeah.
for her because that's tough.
That is tough, right? And it's learning or thinking through now as an adult, like how difficult that really is, because it's a skill set that doesn't come naturally to them. It's a lot of different, it's a role that they're stepping into that's completely new to them. So yeah, I have to agree with every mom that steps up and has to take on that responsibility. It's just such an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Shout out to moms.
Shout out to moms and
Yeah.
you too, man. I mean, your situation, Nestor, that's tough. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
man, like dealing with your father being in and out of jail, I can imagine the type of toll that can take, and to
Hmm.
not hold, to grow up, like that, and
Hmm.
today to be the man that you've become, man. I mean, I see all your success, and now that you're gonna have a baby, what works and what doesn't, or what you've seen that works and what doesn't, and it's great
Yeah.
that you get to kind of break that cycle.
No, I appreciate that, man, for sure. Speaking on that kind of line of thinking, what do you think's the biggest mistake that a dad can avoid?
Yeah, like I think that there's a lot, right? Like I said, I think being a good dad in general,
Hmm.
means to be in your kids' lives, like be present, man. Like don't,
Hmm.
and I find myself doing this sometimes, right? Like
Hmm.
don't, it can be tough, right? Two little boys, man, it's constant chaos. They're loud. And sometimes I just want to sit there and scroll on Instagram. I don't have reels. And
Hmm.
that's hard because they see that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to put it away. My wife constantly reminds me of this too, because I do want to just kind of veg out sometimes and not worry. But man, spending time with your children and being actively involved in their lives is essential. So man, avoid that
Yeah.
mistake. Put your
Yeah.
phone down, be present, don't miss milestones and events. Put work is important, right? We all need it because we have
Hmm.
to pay bills and things like that, but don't
Hmm.
miss milestones. Be there
Yeah.
for them, spend that quality time together. And if there's one more that I could say, I think it would be, obviously listening and communicating, just being there is part of it, but you got to communicate, man. And that's going to build strong
Hmm.
relationships with your kids. Ask them questions, make sure they
Hmm.
know that make sure they're comfortable with you, right? Like they can tell you anything, and you want to make sure that they know that.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think is the role? What part of dad do you think is most underappreciated?
That's a great question. Underappreciated is a hard one because I think that you do so many things subconsciously and people probably don't even realize it. You being a
Yeah.
dad, obviously trying to be that provider figure, that protector figure. But
Hmm.
something I think that people don't realize is just because you're kind of this tough figure, right? You're supposed to be this tough presence in your kid's life. That doesn't mean you can't love and support your kids and show them affection.
Hmm.
Um, I think that that's a quality that sometimes is overlooked by dads. They don't really show that loving affection, encouragement, and emotional support, which is crucial to child's development. A good
Hmm.
dad does show unconditional love and acceptance, and provides guidance. So I
Yeah.
think that that's something that maybe gets overlooked is that, or might be kind of soft, whatever you want to say. Like, call me soft
Yeah.
all you want, man. I love my kids unconditionally, and I show them affection, and I love them because
Yeah.
they're my whole world. So I think that
Yeah.
gets overlooked.
Yeah, that nurture, right? I think traditionally people think of the wife and the woman as the nurture, but they don't see the other side of it when the man and the dad is nurturing as well. And it's a different kind of, I think, feeling for a child to get that nurturing love from their dad than from their mom. And both are valuable, but I think that's the side of the coin that people don't really think through and consider that affection that a dad can give is also important. What do you think it's going to take to build a great dad culture? What do you think men need to do? What do you think dads need to do to change things? Right now, it feels like a lot of dads are just keeping stuff inside. A lot of men are just keeping stuff inside. What do you think it's going to take for us to actually change things?
I think that the thing that's going to, and I kind of keep getting back to this point because I think it's the most important thing, right? Just making sure that as a dad, you're around, right?
Hmm.
Be around. Something that you probably can feel that I did is I didn't have a dad around for a long time, and I missed that. I missed it
Hmm.
so much. And so I think that as a dad, it's okay to take an interest in your kids' homework, to take an interest in what they like. Like I said, man, my kid, Bowen, such a smart little kid, and Ezra is just wild, but they're so different, and I love everything about it. I would never go out for a chess club because, well, number one, I don't even know how to play chess, and number two, I think it's awesome. Like I want him to know, hey, this is so cool, man. I hope you love it. I'll do whatever. I'll learn it with you. And so, just being involved, being present, providing that love, that support, and also being patient. I think that's something that I can tell new dads is be patient. It's tough. It's a little bit harder than anything else you've ever embarked on in your life, but you're going to grow with your spouse together, and you're going to grow as a parent. And so, for dads, don't hold anything in. Talk to your spouse, talk to your kids, and just be present, man. That's the best advice I could give.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. Well, thank you, Cord. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. You're one of those guys that I've seen and it's probably from afar, and I've been like that guy's awesome. He's a great dad, and you're a beast on the mats. I've trained with you enough to know that too. You kick some ass as well. So, really appreciate you taking the time, man. Wish you and your family nothing but the best, and always gonna be excited when I see you introducing new comedians and country stars for your work. That's really cool, and just seeing you do that and kick ass. So love it, brother. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, thanks, brother. You too. Congrats. I can't wait to see all the pictures of the new one. So.